And welcome into another episode of Tiger Territory, part of the Foul Territory Network, a Detroit Tigers podcast. I am Kieran Steckley. With me, as always, a man who has traveled down many a country road, but never to West Virginia. He is Cody Stavenhagen. How you doing?
Hey, good call, Kieran. I've literally never been to the state of West Virginia. You're right. I don't know if you actually knew that, but that is factually correct.
I took a little bit of a chance because obviously you spent some time covering the Oklahoma Sooners, and it was entirely possible. But I felt confident. It was a little bit of a confidence call there for your boy, and glad I got it right.
The year the Sooners played in Morgantown, my colleague went out there and I watched the game at Barry Switzer's house, so I won that deal.
Oh yeah, that's a great deal. That's like Jack Flaherty trade level win right there for you, Cody. All right, so we are recording this Sunday, October 20th. Obviously, not a whole lot of happenings on with the Tigers, so I appreciate everybody listening to us as we go through this offseason, which, as everybody knows, will be one of the more interesting and fun off seasons in some time in Tiger land. We spent a lot of time last week, Cody, talking about Scott Harris, kind of AJ Hinch, but we joked he didn't really say that much. Scott Harris's end of year press conference and the things he said and didn't say, and we just couldn't get to some actual topical news, so we'll do that now. Jake Rogers of West Texas fame was named a finalist for the Gold Glove, obviously at the catcher position. So congratulations to Jake. That's awesome. No Riley Greene, though. So I guess I'll kind of phrase it like this for you, Cody. What's a bigger what kind of rises to the top there when you saw the Gold Glove finalists? What rises to the top? Is it Jake Rogers being a finalist, or the fact that Riley Greene, despite impressive defensive numbers, getting left out of top three there?
Yeah, I don't know if it's like a Midwest chip on the shoulder type thing or what, but when the finalists came out, I was like, I mean, catcher's obviously going to be listed before outfield. So I went to catcher's like, all right, Jake's going to be on here, right? Like, he's not going to get screwed when he clearly deserves to be a Gold Glove finalist. And I saw he was on there. I was like, okay, good. And I really just expected Riley would be on there. I mean, the metrics are just overwhelmingly in his favor. I kind of thought he would be more likely than Jake. I just thought maybe some other catcher with like more name/brand recognition could get it over Jake. And when I saw Riley wasn't on there, I was like, okay, what? Like, what is this based on? This seems ridiculous. The Gold Glove vote, we looked it up. It's I believe 75% managers and coaches, and then 25% from the sabermetric community. So it's an interesting formula they use to determine who will win the Gold Glove. Riley Greene, whether you're going by outs above average, defensive runs saved, whatever you want, had quite a compelling case in left field. I mean, literally had the best case metrically of any American League left fielder. Maybe you could argue, well, he didn't play all his innings in left and he missed some time. But he was really good out there. I'm stunned he was not at least a finalist.
Well, he also had highlight plays, and one of the calling cards of the Gold Glove Award, if you wanted to knock it for its significance, would be, I would say, I can only speak for our generation, Cody, but if it did kind of feel like a highlight award a lot of times, we've joked before about like, number two, like the best outfielders aren't making the diving plays because they're better positioned and they get better jumps and better reads and, that kind of thing. So just to recap, everybody, Colton Cowser, Orioles, Stephen Kwan, Guardians, Alex Verdugo, Yankees were the finalists. You could tell, I'm looking at the MLB write-up right now, you could tell that like it's Verdugo is like a distant third on there, and no disrespect to Verdugo, but there's like one really long sentence about Kwan, who Tigers fans don't need to, question why Kwan's a finalist. And it's like Cowser, he was second among left fielders with +8 outs above average. And then Verdugo, it's like, here's his defensive run saves, and he had 7 assists. There's 6 defensive run saves and 7 assists. So it was kind of like, all right, here's Verdugo's thing. So To me, there wasn't a compelling argument against Riley Greene being a Gold Glove finalist, and I think, in my opinion, should he have like won the Gold Glove, I wouldn't be like, oh, that's surprising. Like it fits what my eyes watched. The disheartening thing there is that the coaches part of it, like, is it like, to me, it just kind of feels like another example of Riley slash, honestly, the Tigers in general, because this stuff is done before the regular or before the postseason, begins, right? So like this nice playoff run that the Tigers had was not on the conscious of these voters and all that stuff. So I think it's another example of the Tigers being, I don't know if it's overlooked is the right phrase, but just sort of not at the level of consciousness that I certainly believe, I believe you, and certainly Tigers fans feel like they deserve, So like it does feel like a little bit of a slight there. And I know it's not apples to apples, okay? But when you got a guy like Juan Soto, who I love, and we're going to talk about later for a different reason, but there is, I'm just going to read it. There's no actual good reason for Juan Soto to be a Gold Glove finalist. It is honestly a joke. Here's what the MLB.com write-up included. He had 10 outfield assists. All right, good on him. Also made positive contributions for the team on the defensive side of the ball. If that's not throwing in the towel about why he's a finalist, I don't know what is. Now, again, not apples to apples, but at the end of in 20 years, people are going to look at the 2024 season and they're going to see Riley Greene, not a Gold Glove finalist, Juan Soto, Gold Glove finalist, and the assumption is going to be that Juan Soto was a better defender just because, the back of the baseball card, the baseball reference page says it. You know what I mean?
-5 outs above average, -1 defensive runs saved. Like, there is just nothing that really indicates he should be a Gold Glove finalist. And I don't watch Juan Soto every single day, but I'll include the eye test in there too. Like, the talking point through a lot of this year was like, oh, well, he's improved. He's improved from being a pretty bad outfielder to a not as bad outfielder. And I guess because he's Juan Soto and plays in New York, he was a Gold Glove finalist. Yeah, you compare that, over to Riley Greene in left field, and it just makes no sense. I haven't quite wrapped my head around this one. And then maybe you look at the criteria and you're like, okay, so like, how does this work exactly? And what is the sabermetric community? And how do they, I mean, I think like the old fielding Bible system plays a large role in it, but how do they then merge these two votes? I personally don't even know the answer to that question, and maybe that speaks to some flaws in the Gold Glove process.
Yeah, we got to hold Rawlings accountable, man. Like, this is gotta be better than that. Which also raises an interesting question. So, not to overlook Jake Rogers being a finalist, that's awesome. Anybody
Very
who watched
much
it,
deserved.
very much deserved, and a guy that I do believe is getting his due diligence. Just you watch the playoff games and the way that they talked about Jake Rogers and how he kind of became the face of the "Don't let the Tigers get hot" thing. I do believe he's getting his just deserved. So that's great. But I did want to pose an interesting question here. So part of the reputation for the Tigers over the past couple of years, at least when what they're trying to do is trying to be really sound defensively. And George Lombard, who I don't know if there's a follow up, there's a lot of credit for the outfield play, but I guess he's going to be in consideration for the White Sox if that's what he wants to do. I hope he does it. That's I'm never going to root against somebody to get a job promotion. So if that's what he wants to do, I hope he does it.
Is that really what he wants to do, George? Is that what you want to do?
I hope he stays. I hope he does whatever he wants to do. I hope he stays. But these jobs are hard to come by. He would be as deserving as anybody. But there are some candidates. So Jake Rogers, Riley Greene, we talked about, Parker Meadows. I think it's kind of interesting talking point, Cody, or pondery, if you would. Who is most likely to win a Gold Glove first? Like, who will be the next Detroit Tiger to win a Gold Glove, because I think there are scenarios at play that lead yourself in either direction. So the Jake Rogers thing is easy. He's a finalist. We know what he does. But catcher is also, it's a hard position. There's a lot of guys that have had peak years and then come down in efficiency or whatever. Like that's just it's a hard position. We all know this. Riley Greene, there's the injury concern. That played itself out in a way this year as well. And then Parker Meadows, you could throw injuries in there too if you wanted to, just for the the way he plays and how much he relies on his legs. But as great as I almost feel bad saying this for the way that he had his postseason play with a hit in every game, but it's not something that you can go to the bank that he's going to hit at a high enough level to warrant the amount of at bats that he would get. Like, it is definitely within range that like Parker Meadows peaked at the plate. Like, it's just like it's something that could happen. So, and maybe there's somebody I missed in there too, like Jace Young. No, I'm just kidding. But like, is there any?
Come on.
It's funny. It's funny. I could poke fun at my fellow Big 12 brethren. Who do you have a leading horse in this race, Cody, about who you think could be like the next to win a Gold Glove? Which again, we could be talking about this, and it turns out it's Jake Rogers. Like, for all we know, but like, who do you think is kind of the next guy who could win a Gold Glove for this team?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, and I don't know that there's a singular leader. It's kind of crazy. The Tigers haven't had a Gold Glove winner since Ian Kinsler in 2016. Been a long time. They're kind of due to have a Gold Glove winner, right? I think you just named guys who have a good chance to be in the running for years to come. Jake, Parker, Riley. I want to talk about the Parker thing for a second because you talk about the highlights. Like, it's easy to be like, this guy's got to win a Gold Glove, right? And Parker Meadows is an incredible defender, and I think will be in the running so long as his bat allows him to play enough innings in the major leagues. But it's also very hard to win a Gold Glove in center field because every team's center fielder is generally a pretty good defender. Every team, not every team, but probably 25 of the 30 teams out there think they have the best center fielder in the league. That's why it can be tough for center fielders to accumulate metrics. Defensive runs saved, you're measured against the league average, and the league average is really high. As long as Dalton Varsho and Jarren Duran are playing center field in the American League, you're going to have an uphill battle to win the Gold Glove. You're going to have to outdo Julio Rodriguez. You're going to it's just not going to be a given. He could rob 12 home runs next year, and doesn't guarantee he's going to win the Gold Glove. I think Parker has a great case. I think Jake has a case. I would almost lean toward Riley being more likely just because it is left field. If he plays less innings in center and doesn't get hurt next year, he could really put up some incredible metric totals in left. That could make a lot of sense. And then how about a little dark horse here? In spring training, for a couple of years, I've said, who I think the single best defender at their position in this system is? Casey Mize.
Ooh.
Pitcher. Now, I don't know if Casey Mize is going to be on the mound enough or on the mound at all, or I'm not sure what the young man's future holds. But I think Mize is a great defensive pitcher. And you know who has become a very good defensive pitcher in their own right? Tarek Skubal. So how about we get a pitcher as the next Tiger to win a Gold Glove?
Yeah, I like the outside. I thought you were going with I like those. And by the way, like, I never felt Casey was out of sorts whenever he is asked to whenever he's put in play defensively, basically. I never felt he's out. Yeah, so that's because sometimes that's all you're looking for is from your pitcher is like, can you at least like recognize, be at the right spot, chemistry with the first baseman to be able to run the right route, throw the right, blah, blah, blah. I thought you were going to holler back to like Zach McKinstry, who was a recent finalist at the utility role.
Yeah, you can't roll that out either. I mean, Matt Vierling, and he's got to probably play a little better at third, but yeah, utility is a little bit of a dark horse there. I mean, Willie Castro is now a Gold Glove finalist.
I was going to ask you.
I don't know anything about baseball.
I was going to say, did you have a reaction to that?
I was just checking my phone, seeing who all was going to text me about it. I didn't get any of the Tigers brass giving me crap for that, so I was relieved there. But yeah, look, I would have deserved it. Good for Willie.
Gold Glove finalist and an All-Star. like the one of the like whatever the Twins equivalent of like grit is, you know what I mean? Like that's like he was like portrayed as like their kind of guy, you know. But good for Willie. I'm not trying to say like anything against Willie, but it would have been a great to see him work out in Detroit. Glad his second chance turned out to be, you know, fruitful. But doesn't mean I can't chuckle at stuff like this, you know, or just be like, damn it, seriously. Like when it's, you know, it's Twins and Tigers neck and neck to make the playoffs there, I'm like, is Willie Castro about to kill my postseason dreams? Yeah, you know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, it was perfect, you know. So like I said, good for Willie. I'm looking at the fielding Bible, you know, page right now for the Tigers, and they have a total run save metric, and they gave Riley Greene 14 total runs saved, and Jake Rogers a 13. You know, it was number 3. Maybe this could be your utility. Andy Ibanez.
Andy's really good at second. I'm not
8.
sure he's great at other positions, but Andy's really good at second.
So, you know, and for record, Parker Meadows was 5, but you would imagine had he played a whole year, that number would be higher. So yeah, that's you want guys like this to kind of be in the discussion because again, like we feel like we know the Tigers can be at least outfield wise, like really good defensively. Like they are capable of being very good defensively. We don't know how, and we know like the pitching and the pitching system, we feel good about that. And the bats, you know, follow. So you got to be good. Yeah. I feel like you got to be really good at 2 out of 3 things, you know what I mean? At least in order to kind of steady course and then make your move. And so it'd be nice if, I think it'd be a great thing for the organization if that was kind of like an organizational reputation that they're consistently getting guys in this discussion, you know. It'd be nice if first base was included in that, but that's a discussion for literally the entire offseason. So we have plenty of time for that. All right. Let's move to a favorite. It's topical and a favorite talking point amongst Tiger fans. And we're going to have, God, probably until March to talk about it, I bet. And that is Juan Soto, ALCS hero Juan Soto. When we were on the Foul Territory show, we got asked about it. And you're getting asked about it on X. I'm getting asked about it on X, by the way. It's at Cody Stavenhagen. I am at Kieran _Steckley. Pod page at Tiger Territory _ plug. I keep finding myself like, I don't mind talking about it, but I also don't have like a lot of depth to say. Whereas like my answer is always, it's not going to happen. Like the question is posed a lot is like, why wouldn't they? I don't have an answer for you there. There's not a why wouldn't they, except I just know that they're not. And again, Scott Harris, offer applies. Just leak that you offered him. You don't even have to actually offer him the contract. Just leak that Scott Boras is not going to be upset at all that it leaked that you offered a contract because then he gets to create more of a market. But I just don't see it happening because it's not the organizational MO at this point. Right. And even if you go back to like how AJ's teams in Houston were built, they weren't built by signing $7 million contracts. Now they made aggressive moves and they went and got talent, but they didn't. There's no Juan Soto type signing there in Houston as they built it up. And Scott Harris, all indications I have are that he's just not interested in getting into that realm of team building. And Juan Soto is going to be his situation, his contract situation is going to be its own little animal anyway this offseason. So that's my take. I have another follow-up, Cody, but like as you are getting questioned about it, which forces you to think about it, like what kind of where is your head at as this pure hypothetical, something we know is not going to happen, but it still in theory could happen. So we're going to talk about it and think about it.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I wanted to discuss it. I was doing my mailbag for The Athletic. You guys can go check that out. I got a question from Andrew R, basically asking about Juan Soto, and I to this point had kind of been like, all right, we're not even going to give that the time of day because it's not going to happen. That had kind of been my stance, and the question kind of geared toward, well, okay, why would the Tigers not be in on Juan Soto? And I wrote like a couple hundred words of just gibberish. And I was like, I'm just going to delete this because it's stupid. And maybe we can talk about it in more of an open format on the pod. So, Andrew, I hope you're also a pod listener. I don't have a good answer for why, other than it's expensive. But then that leads to like, oh, so they're not going to do it because they're cheap. And it's like, well, I guess by definition, sort of. But I don't think that's entirely it. The Tigers don't seem to be in the business of handing out $600 million contracts or maybe huge multi-year free agent deals to anyone. But I would argue if there's anyone worth spending on, it's this guy. It's the best young hitter of a generation, maybe 2 generations. I mean, it's Juan Soto, and he's still very young, and you were going to be paying for his prime years. And granted, it's going to take a 12 or 13-year deal maybe to get him, and that's probably part of it. I mean, I guess, we know how Miguel Cabrera's career ended. Maybe that's part of why the Tigers wouldn't want to commit to such a contract. But hey, if you're trying to supplement a young core, why not just pay Juan Soto? Why not just give him whatever? You're going to make plenty of money just off tickets and merchandise sales. Like, when I start unpacking it, I'm like, you know what? I don't know why they wouldn't at least try. You can go, well, like, they would have a fully left-handed outfield. Platoon splits don't really apply a ton to Juan Soto. I do think like another lefty bat would not impact him per se, but like other hitters in the lineup might be more susceptible to facing lefty bat. And it's like, okay, all right, we're really letting like platoon splits like deter a team from signing Juan Soto. Like, what are we doing here? So I have thought about this long and hard, and I don't have a great answer for why the Tigers won't be on Juan Soto, but I still don't think that they will. And I guess if you're looking for a simple answer, it is as simple as the price tag, because it's going to be astronomical, as it should be, because the dude's going to be worth it.
I mean, he's Barry Bonds at the plate, right? Like that's what we're
like the comp that's always thrown out is Ted Williams. Ted Williams. Would you like Ted Williams on your team?
Yeah, I mean, look,
okay.
It's not my money, but I would absolutely not have any problem signing the Juan Soto to whatever is market rate, and however many years that is. Like, if there was, you already said it, but if there was ever a case, this isn't a 29-year-old looking for a 12-year contract. Like, he's still like super. I forget who it was. Like, Juan Soto is still younger than X player, and I can't remember who it was, but it was some guy that I can't remember, but it was one of those like eye-opening things.
25.
And
Juan Soto's about to turn 26.
I would sign him to 40. I would. I mean, because there's little evidence to suggest that the thing you're signing for, which is his bat, is not going to play long term. There is no evidence to suggest that. Like, none.
And he's a Gold Glove finalist now.
And he's a Gold Glove finalist, as we talked about. So I would love it. So like when I feel like I'm like splashing cold water and it comes across as something that I don't agree with, like, yes, I am in favor of signing Juan Soto. I just don't like see it, so I don't give it as much thought. And I mentioned this last week, but it's like, it's not Mike Ilitch's Tigers. Even Mike Ilitch might have even like passed on this. And also, I think like there's not even like, does it make the Tigers cheap? I guess by definition. At the same time, I don't think he's going to have like a huge market. Like, it's going to be 2, maybe 3 teams bidding for him. And he's just going to sign with the Yankees anyway, because that's what stars do. And by the way, the Yankees are cheap by the standards of the Yankees that we grew up with. Hal is not George. So like, they're not going to like sign Soto and then sign Bregman or whatever. Like, I guess how they feel about the World Series will kind of shape that a little bit. But if they weren't the New York Yankees, Aaron Judge would have walked. Like, he was prepared to walk. They did not offer him a contract that he really liked. They had to tug at the emotional heartstrings for him to sign with the Yankees. So yeah, that's a long way of saying, man, wouldn't it be awesome? Not going to happen. So, speaking of, let's transition to things that are a little bit more realistic. There's the corners that we talk about that the Tigers need to address in some way. And we were doing a little pre-show prep, Cody, and you threw out a name that could be a decent trade guy to look at, and that is Yandy Diaz of the Tampa Bay Rays. You did this research. It's going to be in your mailbag, so I don't want to step on your toes. But when you just kind of threw that out there, and I did my little research, I was like, oh, makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, in a way this relates to the Soto thing, because as I'm trying to slowly think, like, okay, what are the Tigers actually going to do? Not even what they should do, not what would be the best. What is the Scott Harris, Jeff Greenberg front office going to do? And in my couple years covering these guys, it seems like they're always thinking about something that I'm not, and that most fans are not, and that most people, they like to get out of the box. I think we all know that. Doesn't always work. Sometimes it does, as we saw with their approach to pitching in the second half. And I'm like, all right. I mean, it makes sense to sign Alex Bregman. It makes sense to sign Christian Walker. I don't know. These guys like their flexibility and their optionality. And I think in terms of like Scott, it's less about money and more, like we talked about last week, like years, and especially with all the young talent on the rise. Like, what if you have McGonigal in a year or two, and then maybe you finally move Colt Keith to first, but you can't move Colt Keith to first for you're paying Christian Walker $24 million, and how you lead, like, that is what this front office wants to build around, is those guys. Yeah, you got to supplement it with some talent. Maybe a way to do that is going to be the trade market. Okay, so who makes sense? Well, Yandy Diaz, I don't know if the Rays will trade him, but he seems like a player they would trade. There's some rumors about him moving around the time of the deadline. Didn't happen, but I believe he's going to make 10 mil next year. 2026, he has a team option for 12 million. He's not all that expensive. He would have a couple years of him. This is a guy who won a batting title last season, who has great bat to ball skills, great on base. He's a right-handed hitter who had a OPS of well over 900 against left-handed pitching. So he checks that box. He has posted elite exit velocities for each of the past 3 seasons. So there's not much evidence to suggest that he's going anywhere. Doesn't have a ton of home run power, but again, you just look at the OPS against left-handed pitching. Like, he can fill a role in the middle of your order. And the one downside is probably his defense. He used to play some third. He's pretty terrible at it. So he'd still help over there in a pinch, which maybe could apply here. And he grades out as below average at first base. So I don't love that. But his offensive profile combined with the years and the price seems to make a ton of sense. And there's some other guys out there, Ryan Mountcastle, Taylor Ward. We've talked about Brent Rooker. Like, there's some hitters who can make sense on the trade market. The deeper I look, I'm not sure I like any of them more than Yandy Diaz. I have no idea what the Tigers front office thinks about this. I haven't asked them. They probably wouldn't tell me anyway. But I have a feeling they're going to do something. Just signing Christian Walker just sounds too easy for these guys. It just sounds too easy. So what else could they do? For me, man, I think I'd be making a play for one Yandy Diaz.
It's a thought that checks every box, and so I give you credit for identifying that. You mentioned the defense. He was worth 1.6 WAR in 2024. That's Baseball Reference WAR for whatever it's worth. That. Torque was 0.3. So just comparing the two, just for the record. All the metrics make sense. His contract, and you want the Tigers to quote unquote spend. He's going to get paid $10 million this next season, 2025. and then he has a team option or club option, to be most correct, a club option for $12 million for the 2026 season. So that's flexibility, but it's also it's more money for a declining asset if you wanted to, potentially declining asset. I don't want to predict the future there if you wanted to go down that route. So just for whatever it's worth. But also, if you sign him, he would be a potential trade piece. And I don't even mean like selling trade piece, but just like if you needed some help here, he could be potentially one of the guys that could get a decent return or whatever, that you're not like losing any long-term flexibility for. So just want to make that clear. I'm not predicting the Tigers will sell at the trading deadline. Uh, so I like that idea. I like the creativity of it. I'll believe they'll block Torque when I see it. I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't. I'm just saying, like, that's one of the first thoughts I had, and he is. Sorry, I'm trying to.
You know something else I did about when I was looking at Yandy Diaz. Like, look at Torque's Fangraph, his Baseball Savant, and pretend there's no name and no picture on there. Would you want this guy?
It would
You
be
know what my answer would be.
It would the blind resume, as they say, is not in Torque's favor, and so yeah, it'd be nice. I mean, I guess if you're gonna have some optionality with the DH, like Yandy obviously plays into that, but the cost would be interesting because, again, how many times are you trying to trade with the Rays when it's like, are they trying? Do they know something we don't?
That's the kind of the one risk, maybe even more than the defense. You really want to make a trade with the Rays, but we had Scott Harris on. He says he doesn't think about those things.
Yeah, so he says. Real quick, Cody, we've gotten some just another interesting talking point as we kind of wrap up this another offseason pod of Tiger territory. You got anything to say about like the feel good story of Justin Verlander potentially coming back? He's a guy that it did kind of feel weird. I understand the reasons for it, but it did kind of feel weird to see him not on the AL wild card roster, and I think it would be one of those great things to see him come back to Detroit, especially if the team's good. I'm not sure that fits. Again, I keep going back to the MO stuff. I'm not sure it fits the MO thing. I mean, the AJ Hinch is a part of it too with the feel good stuff, but I'll be interested. I don't know what kind of market he's going to have either, so it's hard to gauge.
I am pretty fascinated to see what kind of deal Verlander gets. I mean, I could see 1 year $8 million, or I could see 2 years 40 something million with a team option. Like, I really have no idea. But where I come to is like, I just don't think he makes sense for the Tigers given their timeline. If the Tigers were still bad, yeah, why not? Bring back JV. Maybe he can unlock another year of some magic and everyone feels happy and you sell some tickets and you have a couple promotion days. For their current timeline, I think a 41-year-old gone through some injuries, coming off a season where he had a 5.48 ERA, and yet still might carry a somewhat high price tag just based off reputation, really makes no sense for the Tigers. Like, again, this is even what I'm going to be trying to do today and moving forward is thinking even less myself and more like, okay, what are Scott Harris and Jeff Greenberg and AJ Hinch and whoever else is involved in these decisions? What are they thinking? And I have a very tough time seeing those men liking the idea of adding Justin Verlander to this mix. Verlander, I mean, in a way he could probably help young players, but you'd also be adding like a large personality to the mix. Could that disrupt your quote unquote culture? Like, I don't know. Maybe so. Not even saying anything
Is he going
negative
to
about
see to
JV,
Tarik
but like,
Skubal as face of the rotation? Those are
yeah,
real things.
it would just when you add a guy like Justin Verlander, it will change the feel of a room. And so if you're going to do that, I think you got to be sure that that guy is going to be a prime time performer. And at 41, coming off a bad season, I don't think you can be that confident in Justin Verlander. And he might go on to pitch well for somebody else. I don't think it makes sense for the Tigers right now.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that would be really fun, but you could also see a very real scenario where like it's great for March spring training headlines, and then like what if it just completely unravels and it's like bad for everybody? So his last time.
Maybe more likely to happen if you weren't also paying Kenta Maeda. Like the last thing you need is two guys who are washed. That would handcuff the entire pitching staff.
It's a good point. A lot of food for thought there, and the Tigers got us by the edge of our seats, man. I can't believe we're talking about all these topics with like the like with the positive tone, not like with the reaching to try to
Right.
get relevant. I guess you could say so. Uh, I'm having a lot of fun. I hope you're having fun, Cody. I see your brain biscuits turning, and I could tell that there's going to be some good content coming this off season on The Athletic. You can read all that if you're a subscriber, which you should be. Want to thank everybody for listening and subscribing to us, Tiger Territory, formerly Turning the Corner. So if you found us some other way, you haven't subscribed to Tiger Territory, it's Tiger Territory. It's wherever you get your podcasts. It's on YouTube. It's on all these social medias that I understand but also don't understand. But we're on there. And again, I want to say follow Cody on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Cody Stavenhagen. I'm at Kieran_Steckley. Pod page is man. Little tongue twister there, Cody, to end here. Tiger Territory _ is the pod page. So, well, like I said, I want to thank everybody for listening. For Cody Stavenhagen, I am Kieran Steckley. Everybody have a great day.